Hello, hello. At least there's one of you. Yes, we can. Hello. We're waiting for the other two people that are supposed to show. And we're almost there. No, it's just that make sure. Okay. Hey, we're all here. We're in live, and we are live streaming, people. We are live streaming. Hey, say. Well, we're missing, okay, so we're missing a couple of people. Oh, welcome to the club. And we are already live streaming. Okay, so whether you guys know it or not, you're already on live streaming. And we're live streaming through YouTube. This is probably how we should do the rehearsals and stuff. And the other two people, don't tell me they're gonna do a no show, but we'll talk anyway, because hey, it's possible. Let's see. Yeah, I kind of gave it to pretty much everybody. Okay, so maybe they'll come on later. Okay, kind of what the impetus for this situation was a chart that one of my students had come up with, and she posted it on Facebook. And what happened as a result of that, it was the idea of
Nehemiah, there's feedback.
Music and
there's feedback on your talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And squelching.
Okay, that means that somebody needs to. So it means that somebody needs to put one of those things in.
Do I need to do that?
So are you getting feedback?
Oh, I am.
I'm getting
else
feedback
getting feedback?
too. I have headphones in.
Yeah.
I have headphones in.
You kind of need.
I don't.
Are you getting squelching?
Okay.
I am.
I think that.
So everybody is.
So
Okay.
I should put on
I
headphones?
think it's just. Well, actually, it might be helpful. Welcome to live stream.
I shall pretend.
Nehemiah, do you have headphones?
Yes, I have them in. Okay. So where was that? So this is like live streaming the whole thing, and I'm live streaming through YouTube. So there's about a possibility of recording that. So the long and short of the story was this, that in the chart, and I suppose I would like to do maybe another one of these where we actually get a chance to, since I'm understanding what it means to go live streaming, and I'm completely ignorant to the whole thing. So this is my cross. Anyway, the story with the chart was, it was called The Evolution of Music, and then on one side of the chart, you know how they have the connecting things. It said white people, and it was white people. Then the reference was rather, how can I say it, anorexic relative to the white people. That there was rock, and then there was art. There was the evolution. Okay, on the other side of the chart, there was they started out with African American customs, religious customs, and so another. And practically, this chart went from the 1600s into the years 2000. Since she'd gotten so shot up and shot down from posting this on her page, she happened to have included me on her page. And I suggested, I reposted it, and okay. I reposted it, and I gave a different sense of it. Okay, if I need to. Excuse me. One of the invitees asked me what the link was.
When you sent me the link, it said it didn't work. I just went to the icon and I got in.
Oh, okay. So hopefully they'll both get it, and they'll connect in. That was Lucienne that was asking for the connector. So anyway, the long and short of the conversation was that I looked at the chart as any good teacher would do, and you'd say, well, this really isn't about the global sense of music. This is a study about African American music after the 1600s, because everything on the other side was really weighted, and on the other side there was really nothing. And you know, as much as I was interested in how they really brought out the other, I thought if they were going to do that conversation, it was only a conversation about music of the Africans that had come to the United States, and beginning with that. So there was no discussion of Africa or anything else. And the uptick on it was that yeah. This is probably the tackiest thing I've ever done. Anyway, They're going to ask you, "Are you meeting already?" I said, "Okay, okay." So anyway, what I felt was that it wasn't really a discussion about anything about the rest of the world. It was just about black music, and that was it. After the 1600. When Lucienne, who's a harpist, and Anna, who's a violinist, that Brenda and I had met in the United States, and yeah. And pretty much I'm saying to her, just click and go. Okay, so we got into this discussion, and one of the people was saying that, was this another situation where you actually devalue one form in order to elevate the other form? And I took offense to it in a lighthearted way. And I said, well, for what I was thinking, it's a conversation about black music, and that's it. So I don't even understand, whoever did the chart, why they presented it in that way. But I felt it was a moment of conversation. So we actually started talking about the whole thing, which if it's not just in America, but it's something that's going around the world, about how to deal with inclusion in conversations, and it gets into the whole social evolution, and then it gets into the musical evolution. So I decided that it might be interesting to have a conversation after I talked with Barbara. She said my words were too highfalutin. I need to break it down and make it simpler. And so we came up with social and musical evolution. Well, it really was. I mean, it's. Well, I really kind of appreciate it, because I mean, that one of the hardest things to do is to break it down and make it simpler. It's one of the tragedies of being educated. When you're educated, you have all of the, you can do all the tenses, and you can do all of the ologies and isms and all of that stuff. When if you have just kind of like limited vocabulary, you use that and you work it for what it's worth. And from what my understanding was from my mentor when I was growing up, was the most complicated thing. The most intelligent people have the capacity to put whatever they're doing in the simplest form that everybody can understand. And I think those of us that follow the Christian movement understand that Jesus was a maestro, that he was able to take something, these complicated terms or ideas, and put them into something that was much more simple. Yes, absolutely. And so I think it bears some talking about. I mean, I've had people in light of the current events sociologically. Okay. Oh, no wonder. Okay. So how? Okay. So how can I do that? Invite people. Okay, so I'm suggesting she try the corrected link. Okay, so you guys are so patient. Nobody's saying a word. Okay. Okay. So so what I was thinking is that hopefully that they'll find a way to get on here. And I think it's worth the conversation. I think we are looking at we have a common thread, at least between the five of us that are on the panel right now. The common thread we met under some circumstance or something that was related to music, and there are a lot of things that are happening. How can I say it? The music is evolving in a different kind of way. In fact, the real common denominator that we have is gospel music or Christian music. For instance, Barbara and I are working on this project called the Legacy Project that has to do with culture and arts and music. And then Christine and I founded the Diva Gospel Choir, which Merlin is part of. And I've known Brenda Spirit since she rolled up to my house where there was like 16 inches of snow and telling me that she needed a musician to play at her sister's wedding. So, so we kind of go way back with that. But I think that there are some things that are going on in the world today that I think. So how can I invite her?
If you have time to do it, tell her to go to the website, to the icon, click on, and what comes up is is you, and just hit that. Because that's how I got it, because I couldn't use the link.
Brenda, what website are you talking about?
Isn't this called what's this called? JITS meeting or whatever this is called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go there.
Okay.
Go there and type in FGCS Music Projects.
Right.
Actually, it comes up. You don't have to type in anything. I didn't. I don't know.
If
My phone's a
you've
little
been there
weird.
before, it
It
comes
Yeah,
up.
that's
automatically comes up.
That's right. That's right.
And tell me, let me tell you, I hate spell check because it always wants to spell something that that you are.
You're clear how to spell.
Yeah, and it just wants to spell it in a different way.
Pastor Brenda, did you see a missed call from a foreign number a couple days ago? I tried to call you.
Oh, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. I was asleep, and then I said, "What was that?"
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I'll call you again. But
Okay.
I have really appreciated your online sermons, and
Oh,
I wanted to let you know that I quoted you in giving a sermon of my own.
wow. What was the sermon?
Well, the sermon was last Sunday at Holy Trinity Church, which is an
Mhm.
Anglican church, for their evensong service. And the text was from Deuteronomy, where we're asked to love God with our whole heart, soul, and mind.
Yes.
And it gives the qualities of God, God's might, and it leads without pause into God's commitment to the widow and the orphan and the stranger. And kind of in light of that text, I could do nothing else than talk about the trauma that we're experiencing, due to the sin of racism. And so I quoted you in that sermon where your discussion of God has a prescription for justice and we're called to it.
Yes.
And the specific concept of, we've been come alongside and we're called to come alongside. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yay! Preaching.
Well, I told you I was promoting you.
I thank you. God is good.
But so as I was saying, I think that there are a lot of things that are happening in the world, and people are looking for ways to express themselves. Those of us that are old, we can remember back when you'd sit in some sort of class and people are saying stuff that you think it's not possible that they could be saying any of that. And or it's like since I went to the University of Virginia centuries ago, I knew that the discussion we were discussing folklore, and my professor was using the class to write his book. And so he opened things up for people to have conversation. And so it was supposed to be, how can I say it, a friendly area, a free area where you could express yourself. Even if you say stupid stuff, I mean, the stupid stuff that you say is the stuff that you don't say. And I think that sometimes, when, well, I'll say this, and I was really prepared to bring this conversation in, was that when I was studying Italian, and I was going I skipped a level and so on and so forth, and I realized that the professor allowed me to skip because he felt like maybe I'd get it, maybe I wouldn't get it. But the problem was that if he didn't get that other person, who was me, they would have canceled his class. And so we said, yeah, sure, bring him in, bring him in. Okay, so we were having a conversation, and we were talking about geography, and they were talking about Italy. Now, practically everybody in my class that wasn't one in my class had been to Italy at some point in time. And so they were talking about Firenze, Firenze, Firenze. And I asked, I said, well, how far is Firenze from Florence? Everybody went for the floor. They just went. They laughed me until I said, okay. It was a stupid question, but for my money, it was his fault because he hadn't taught anything about geography. Because all he had to do was to say that since we were talking about Firenze, that Firenze, the other word for Firenze is Florence in English. And you know, when I came here, then I realized that there was a lot. So Paris is Parigi, and so on and so forth. And I thought, okay, that was a stupid question, but I was glad I asked. You know, it was better that I asked, and it wasn't a safe area because they were willing to ridicule me for my ignorance since I skipped a level, and so I was just a little too bright. So this was their way of putting me in my place. And I thought, okay, I'll get you for that. Okay. So needless to say, when I had come to Italy and I'd stayed for a year, you got over the thing where, okay, you got to think about the language and you can't communicate. And so I found everybody that was in my class and invited them to have a conversation with me. And nobody wanted to talk to me in Italian. Okay. So anyway, there you have it. But I think what has to happen is if people make those kind of mistakes, there's got to be it's got to be a territory where, yeah, I mean, sometimes, for instance, the story about the Juneteenth thing and the 45th saying that, you know, he told the world about Juneteenth and nobody knew about Juneteenth. And so, hmm. 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 It's interesting. I thought it was how you brought that around to explain communication was exchange of ideas, exchange of information, and I think that's extremely important. I was watching something uh, the other day, and I put a comment on my Facebook page that I said it's rather interesting how these things work. How that even between men and women, um, at least as my sisters tell me, they say you could be right there telling him exactly what you feel and what you're all about and so on and so forth. And it's like, and then after you spend an hour, you're bearing your soul or what have you, and then he comes out with some kind of comment that demonstrated he didn't understand a thing that you said. Yeah. And I found out that when you're we used to do debate at Lane High School. The whole idea was that you're listening to the other guy, but you're listening so you can shoot holes into his argument. It's not like you're trying to glean anything. You just want to rip his. You want to see the weakness in his conversation, and so therefore you can attack on that. And I find that sometimes the situation is like that, especially if you feel like you stand to lose something, or you lose face, or you're coming from how can I say it? Uh, you, yeah, or you're trying to defend something. You're just trying to to keep the whatever the veneer or whatever that's there, or you've been injured or what have you, and so therefore you're trying to protect yourself from any kind of darts or anything that's coming out there. Hmm. Mhm. So Barbara, we use you as a kind of go-to person for the language. Okay, so are we're saying by this communication is not just with the exchange of idea, but to find the commonness in the conversation. Is that what would you say about that? Hmm. 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 A disconnect, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So, hmm. It's interesting what you said, that to create community in the conversation or in whatever is happening, so that you can communicate. And if there isn't that, but because I was thinking your uh, your example, if she's trying to get to Las Vegas, and I started talking to her about when I went to Jamaica, it's like, wait a minute, okay, so am I not talking about going to Las Vegas? Okay, what does that have to do with? Unless you really have to sort of rounding it out, and leaving it so that that is the gist of her conversation. The conversation is about her, and not about, that I've been all over the world and so on and so forth. And I think that's kind of an important thing. Hi, Lucienne. We finally got you connected. Okay. Yeah, that does. That does. Well, I mean, this is it's sure. I mean, this is I can tell you, I had a Bible study at 6 that I kind of cut short by 10 minutes, and I had Eusebio to shoot me some information about how is it possible for me to go online and go on a live streaming thing. And I was just having like a moment. And, I had to rely on the scripture that if any man lack wisdom, that God will give it liberally and would not find fault. And so, so this was really fun. Okay, so the long and short of it, we're talking about the things that need to happen before we can really communicate at all. Interestingly enough, one of the big things that happened to me with Christine was Christine and I we chit-chatted for years. And she had said something to me about coming to Geneva and working with this youth group that, strangely enough, were able to have a youth, I think it's Youth Culture Europe, I think, meeting at the same time there was convocation. And so young people, when you're at that age, which is your teens and your early 20s or so, you have this keen sense that, in my book, that the adults talk about whatever they want to talk about. They could really care less about what you're talking. They really do try and make a space for you, but especially when they have these big conventions and stuff, it's all about them and not very little about you. So they were coming up with, as I recall, kind of a manifesto of issues that they really wanted to talk about. They wanted to address with the adults, and then we had been asked, or somehow I can't remember exactly how it happened, Christine asked me to put together a group to sing during the convention. And I thought, we got 50 kids that have never sang together, maybe, at least I've never sang with them. And we need a miracle. And we saw, well, we saw that God just did it. He just did it. And then it was so much to the point that it started a conversation with that amount. Weren't they singing like the same day or something like that, or that evening? They were singing at a dinner, and they were so able to do this. And everybody that's ever worked with me knows that I'm not the easiest person, and usually I insist and insist and insist. And so you got well, you got all these kids, and I think what's it, 40, 50 kids or something like that, and they've got to sing and they've got to be dressed right because it was like really kind of, and they were able to pull it off, which all of a sudden put them into a whole nother different arena where they had accomplished something, and they had commonness of thought, and they had a common experience that they were able to prove that they could handle whatever was being tossed at them. And Christine would probably tell you more about it than I could. But the thing that we were trying to do is to in churches and in places, sometimes there's a frustration level of communication that's just immense. It's like you see it all the time. I remember growing up as a PK, a preacher's kid, that they just talk and talk and talk and talk. And, you're just thinking, but they're not talking about me, I'm always left out of the equation. And, and I do have something to say, but, they haven't opened the door. They haven't given me an opportunity to express myself. And so I saw in action, it was a good situation, but it was also a critical moment for them to find a way to galvanize their emotions, their commonness, even their anger, their youth, and so on and so forth, and be able to be articulate. And we were able to have some representatives of the powers that be to come and talk, and they were able to actually speak and tell them what was important. So I said all of that to say that, you know, the power of communication is amazing, and it is. I'm so happy that we started with this first about defining the whole thing about community and communication and just what we're trying to go after within the scope of what we're saying. Marilyn, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes,
did you want to add something?
Well, I've been trying to figure out exactly how I can explain my most recent experience communicating with someone who doesn't have a mindset like mine. Paul,
Mm-hmm.
are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, because on my side it froze. What it is on Facebook, this gentleman, I don't know how he became a friend. He is a white male who has a definitely racist tinge to him, but he went, I'm not going to unfriend anybody just because they have a different mindset. And I went, well, let me try and see if we can communicate. Okay.
Bless your heart.
Hey, because when I read what he wrote, I was like, I'm out of here. I said, no, let me try to communicate. So the man is taking, he has an issue with Black Lives Matter. And I went, it's not that we're saying the same old thing about only Black Lives Matter. It's just that in this case, things are happening to Black folks and it needs to stop. And it's not just because it's happening to Black folks, it's just that it's wrong. And so then he went over to, well, they want to take down this, I forgot who it is, but it's in the South. Maybe it's General Lee, somebody's statue.
Probably.
Okay. People wanted to pull it down. And so he went, well, if that's the case, well, then they should take down Martin Luther King's statue. And I went, okay. He said, that's fair. That's equality. And I went, well, I don't know how long that other man's statue has been up, but say it's been up for 400 years. And Martin Luther King's only been up for 10 years. If you want to pull down Martin Luther, you can take it down. And that's equality. He didn't agree. Okay, he was like, going, no, equality is to take it down tomorrow. I said, but it's almost like if you say it's a timeshare. If someone is sharing a condominium timeshare, okay, and there's 52 weeks in a year, and you've got 50, and then I've got 2, and you go, okay, that's enough. It's equality. I said, it's not working. And he went from there and went, well, you should be talking because you're in Europe. You're not an American. Do you have American blood? Have you fought in the Confederate War? And I went,
have you?
No, yeah, it's like, really? But the thing was, it's like, wait a minute. We went from Black Lives Matter to statues to now I'm not an American because I'm in Europe. And he goes, I've got German, Polish, and Czechoslovakian blood. I can talk. And I went, well, I think Cherokee blood tops yours. Can we go to that? Okay.
Oops. See, girl.
Okay, I just went, Cherokee blood and Black blood. So therefore, African American blood. He goes, why don't you just go home? And I went, well, I would go home because you're talking about now reparations. Well, let's say before I can go home, you need to do a DNA test, pay for my DNA test, so you can tell me where my ancestors came from when you stole us. And then you need to do reparations to the other side of my ancestors and give them back the land that you took for them. And then you can take your time. Not to mention the minerals. Right. And I said, then what you can do to make it really equal and make, America great again is you can take your time, pack up all of your stuff and figure out where your ancestors came from Germany and Poland and Czechoslovakia. He didn't like that. Okay, but we were trying to communicate, but we weren't
You're a good woman. I would have been gone.
Well,
Just a good woman.
well, thank you. But what I was thinking about is when you were talking about communicating and making sure you're on the same page and so on and so forth. No matter how I tried to communicate with this guy, he kept changing so he could argue. He did not want to communicate. And
Yeah.
that was what was really,
Yes.
really hard and weird to get your mind around, because it's like
Yes.
trying to figure out and say, okay, you don't want to communicate. What do you want? You were trying to embarrass me.
Yeah.
And since I didn't take it that way, I took it on the surface level that we're communicating and I'm going to educate or teach him what he's not talking about. It didn't work. And I finally said, listen, I'm going to end this conversation. And I wrote, end of communication in all the languages, Polish, German, and Czechoslovakian. He did not like that.
Yeah.
So it's about communicating. It's about communicating.
But that's really important. People have got to want to communicate, or it can't happen.
There's an interesting thing that I heard. I just want to say this and I get out of it. I was listening to a conversation with Tony Evans, and he was, I think it was he or somebody in the conversation was saying the whole thing about Black Lives Matters is sometimes people don't get it. They really don't get it because they define it based on who they are as opposed to what the subject matter is. And he said it's like in a neighborhood, for instance, there are all these houses, and they're all everybody's the same, the same economic level, and so on and so forth. And they all want to have a great fire department, okay? And the fire department's got to do its duty. And so he's saying that, but the day when the fifth house down on the corner is on fire, which one is most important in the whole thing? Which is the one that matters most? The house is on fire. And pretty much what they're saying now is relative to the situation, the level of negligence or whatever it is you want to say about it. The reason why we're saying Black Lives Matters is because the house is on fire. And, for years, it's been burning for a long time and nobody seemed to care about it. And
exactly.
So the people are saying, can we get some water on this? Can we just pretend that my house is
really burning?
Is just
really
like all the rest of it. Yeah. So
or you could say it the other way too. You could say also that the other houses are in brick, and so they're not even at risk. And you didn't have the chance to make yours go to brick because you couldn't buy the bricks. So you're trying to hold on to your wooden house, and the fire has hit the wooden house. So the bricks are going to get hot, maybe, but they're not going to burn down and die. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So you were saying, Lucienne? You were saying something?
I was just thinking because, the conversation you're trying to have, that person can't even have a conversation because they don't know the language. The only language they know is that of the slogans and stuff that are fed them, and they're satisfied with it's like junk food. They're satisfied with junk food. It takes away that sort of immediate need for some sort of information, and it fits into the narrative of some people, and it fits into the narrative of the populists. So they've got their junk food knowledge of it, and it's quite interesting because I've been trying in school just in the last few weeks. The kids are all aware of it. This is in Frankfurt. Aware of the protests. Some of them were down at the protests and things, and the class is a mixed class with I have kids with Rwandese and Senegalese background and stuff like this, and so they're quite aware of it, and they were having really good conversations. But it's coming out from reading their they had a poetry writing project this week, and I'm a little bit disappointed by a couple of them. And why I'm disappointed is they were too lazy to really get in. It's their typical way of working, and so they are my concern. They're the lazy responders to the information that's there, even though those discussions, they had stuff to read about and visuals to look at, and we're getting behind it, but not many. Most of them were really super really trying to get behind it and trying to sort of get in, having some sort of more of an understanding. They able to sort of work out what they had learned about the whole issue, about understanding it. Some of it was more on a basic level, but I'm quite happy with that. But just a couple disappointed me, and it's because they're lazy students. And one of them was really saying, oh, yes, I didn't have anything to learn because I already knew all of this, or because of course it shouldn't happen. But, you know, that's kind of naive. It is there.
It's interesting that you say that, because the man that I was talking about, what he said to me was, oh, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you're just regurgitating things. And I was like, oh, now you're projecting on me what you're all about. It was very, no matter which way you went, it was like all about saving face and just saying whatever he wanted to say that was not substantiated by anything. At least your students, they substantiated with it was blah, 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 but at least there was something behind even their blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Look, it was really only one, maybe sort of two that I'm concerned about, but yeah, your conversations were like grabbing at straws and completely unrelated in some sense, just sort of going off at a tangent. It felt
more like a conversation with a bully in a park. If you're this and that, cross this line. Well, if you can do this, then cross that line. And you systematically cross the lines, and the bully doesn't know what to do. And I was hoping we would get to the point where we've crossed all the lines, and then we could talk. But we never got there. And that was regrettable to me.
Yeah. Well,
can you explain to me what you meant by lazy in that sense?
Me?
No, Lucienne.
He's lazy in that anything he does, he'll do it the cheap way. If he can read up on Sparks notes, he'll do that. It's like he was going to see it, and he went to one level of logic which is kind of fair enough. Oh, this is just so completely outrageous. It shouldn't exist because we're all equal. But then he was throwing back his arguments. You know, he's saying that, and then he said, they're being attacked or something because they're different. And I said, hang on a minute, you're not consistent in your reasoning here. He's just too lazy to do he hadn't done any of the preparation questions or anything like this, and just went straight into writing about it. So that he hadn't done any soul searching or just digging enough to get something that he could actually reflect on and learn from. So other kids really had some very nice, some very nice things.
That's how garden variety racism works in this country. It keeps holding on because people are in a comfortable spot for them. To really fight inequality, you and everybody has to agree that we're going to be uncomfortable for a period of time. But in this country, in my lifetime, what I have seen is people who have assumed that they are superior, and they assume it because they get certain perks, and they anticipate having those perks because they're white, say. And the real anger is that they can no longer anticipate those perks. The moment the folks you want to be superior to decide, number one, I'm certain you're not superior to me, and no, I don't grant that you ought to have this and I shouldn't have it, you got a problem. And so the lazy thinking becomes an issue. And you go back to platitudes, and what the real issue is that you're just mad because you don't have to do anything to accrue all these advantages. When folk go, okay, you can think whoever you are. My mother and father taught me very early on, no one is better than you. Now, you're not better than anyone else, but no one is better than you. So we're starting with an even playing field. And all my life, I've noticed folks who say, oh, I know what's wrong with you. You think we're even. And I say, yeah, I'm certain of it. I know it. And they have real problems. And they start sputtering like you're non-conversationalist. They sputter. How dare you think you can be equal? I dare to think it because it's true. And what's happening now is people who have been left out of the conversation, who have not even been considered, are saying, I am so sorry, but I'm in this conversation. In fact, you can't have a conversation without me. You can't sit at this table and exclude me and think I'm going to abide by any of the rules and suggestions you've made up. Oh, no. If I'm going to have to be bound by this, if we have a social contract, then I have to be one of the contractors. Because if I don't agree, I'll just tear your contract up and your statutes. Thank you very much.
I heard that.
Interesting. The one thing, my very first day of college, it's my first week of college. I can't. It was just one of those. Okay, so I lived in Charlottesville. That years ago nobody could pronounce the name. Now everybody all over the world pronounce it without. And you hear, and I hear daily in this country pronounced correctly, and. We were taking the various and sundry meet and greets. And so I decided that I wanted to have a full experience at this institution. Mind you, I grew up in the town where the institution is. And so I decided I was going to live in the dorms. I was living in the Eccles house, where at the time it was Eccles Scholars. So somewhere along the line, I came to grips with being that and then some. So the long and short of it was that this I had made friends with 2 or 3 different people, and I'm on my hall and I have my room, and this guy walks over to me and he feels the need to tell me. He said, "No matter what you do, I will never see you as my equal."
You didn't know him from Adam Tomcat.
I just, it was like, oh,
this is where we are.
and I'm just thinking, what was that all about? I mean, what was my presence affecting him so much that he had to go there? Okay, so since we were already there, I said, listen, okay, now look at it. Okay, now my folk were in the fields all that time. And here we are now. Same institution, same hallway, taking the same course load. I said, you can imagine where I would be if we had the advantage that you have. He never spoke to me again. Ever.
Very good.
Ever. And I said, I said to him, I said, but now if you really look at it, I'm probably superior to you because we made up for the loss and we just zoomed past all of that. And he was like, he hadn't entertained the thought. I find that when you've got a house, to defend, and a lot of what's happening now is people are defending. I mean, when we started the gospel choir at this church here in Florence, there was a little lady from Rome, Georgia. She said, well, my word, when I grew up, I heard this kind of music from the church down the street all the time, but I never thought I would hear it up in my church. And she proceeded to throw her weight around, and then the pastors really didn't care because at the time and she was kind of elderly, and so she was using the fact that she was going to bequeath her home and whatever else to the church as bargaining power. And so we were blessed to have someone who was 10 days older than I am. And he said, heck no. Okay. But it was like those kinds of things that say, okay, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Okay, I escaped the United States because we didn't want to have to deal with all of that. And here you are here now. And I've had quite a few of those, not with the Italians, but with the Americans that are here. It's like, why are you here? Are you in the military? Are you this?
The
okay, you're not
Karens.
supposed to be here. And
Yep.
all those kinds of things. And the need to feel that, okay, that, you know, we're protecting territory or what have you. And you know what? I understand that.
Hmm.
I totally understand it when the guy gets his damn girl. That this kid was, you know, he was going from all of the stuff that he had been taught all his life, that, you know, this was an exclusive situation, and he never expected to come to a school like that. And there were very few of us at that institution at the time, and he never expected to be down the hall from one of those people, you know, the descendants of slaves, because there is that whole other side to it where the ones that are not descendants of slaves don't go through the same thing that the descendants of the slaves in America go through, or the U.S.
Mhm.
So that's a whole nother cow. But I think the thing is to understand that the reason why that some, and you know, I'm really, and I think it's probably the pastor in me that's coming out, that says, you know, consider the walls that this person has built around them, considering the fact that they're on the last leg. They're on the last leg, and they're all of a sudden they're seeing their whole neighborhood go down. I have a few friends in Oakland that used to be the Chocolate City. And all of a sudden, the Chocolate City became brown all of a sudden because originally the neighborhood was made up of people that had moved from the South and moved to California for a better life, and they had the GI Bill and so on and so forth. And as of late, the last 10 years or so, maybe even more, there were people that have been coming up from South America and Mexico, and a lot of folks have flew the coop. It's no longer a chocolate city. So therefore, you find older people that are in a neighborhood with people that speak a language that they don't even have a clue to, or the church that is in that neighborhood is finding out that all of the people that used to attend that church have moved to another part of town. And what do? Sell the church, or do you minister to the people in that neighborhood? And so it's really quite an interesting task that we have dealing with the whole communication aspect of it. But I want to jump in a little deeper and tell you my trauma about this whole George Floyd thing. On one occasion, while I was director of religious programming at a station in San Diego, I was coming from loading up my records and so on and so forth into my car and going. This was in the evening. My show was like early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and so I'm just getting around to bringing all my stuff in. And all of a sudden, I noticed that the police were kind of going up and down the street and watching me. And I thought, I didn't think about it at all. I just thought, you know, they were just doing whatever they do. And so what happened in the final analysis of that was that all of a sudden they stopped. They felt like I was stealing something from the house where I was bringing stuff into, which to me was like, okay, can the logic? I was bringing things in the house, not taking things out of the house. And so So pretty much, my roommate at the time was white, and he said, I went in to take one thing, and he was bringing another, and they started to question him, and then they put him in the police car. Okay, my situation was I come out and I see all of the guys in blue, and the first thing they do is put me in a chokehold, and they didn't ask me for identification or anything. They just knew I was stealing. And so we were sitting around waiting for the supervisor to show up because my friend was saying a lot. And so he finally came, and I said, you know, they didn't ask me for ID. They would have seen from my ID that this was happening. And I said, I manage a radio station, and also this is things from my private show. And the sergeant says to me, well, you know, there have been some break-ins in the neighborhood. Okay, I said, okay, how many times have we heard this? And they just want to make sure that this wasn't happening to this particular situation. And so he said, I would rather that they err on the part of having been aggressive rather than to do nothing. And my boss, who's African American, millionaire, he said he prohibited me from saying anything on air or on my show about the situation. The other situation, and this is both California, that was in San Diego. The other situation was I was on tour with the choir, and one of my closest friends who I'd worked with in the stock market with, he had moved to Santa Monica. And so we agreed that at the end of the concert, we'd go to a coffee house. So we were in Santa Monica. Okay, we had gone into, we were going into this coffee shop. And so he had driven up, and he was in one of those old postal Jeeps, the little small ones. And pretty much what had happened was this, that there was a Mercedes on the other side of the street where people were doing coke. There was another one on the other side where they were buying something else that was of the same nature. And there was me standing outside of this little vehicle. And a policeman rose up on a bicycle with a gun, and his hand was shaking. And he told me to put my hands up. And so my friend was putting the brace to block the steering wheel on his car. And he looked up and he saw that. And he jumped out. He said, you know, what's going on? What's going on? Okay, mind you, I was a non-person. Okay. The cop never asked me who I was or what I was doing. He just assumed that I was stealing. Mind you, there were people on the street doing crack and selling dope, okay, in this posh neighborhood, but I was like the one that stood up. So after having nightmares for about a month after that one, with the guy with the magnum sticking in your face, and I just thought, if he's that flaky, the only thing I can do is put my hands up. So this whole thing with George Floyd rang, it like all kinds of things just started going on my head. All the scars, all of the anger, all of the frustration, and mind you, I'm not even in the United States. Okay, it was almost as if this had just happened to me, and I was feeling that all of a sudden. And so, for me, it was like, okay. And then I listened to Obama talk. I remember his talk before, and he was saying, oh God, obviously he had experienced something similar, because he's saying it's a rite of passage, it seems, in the United States, that, and what I understand is not just the US, that people of color have been going through that for a long time. and that the scars are there. And so therefore you don't trust the policeman. Even my parents, when we were growing up, they said, well, if you get lost or something, find a policeman. And parents stopped telling that to kids. They don't tell that to black kids anymore. They dropped that. That's like, no. Or they would say, go to the nearest police station. I remember those days. It's like, hell no. Okay. You've just been conditioned by the society. And that's where you get the thing, is that I'm on the street, I'm in the same neighborhood, I've got as much education as everybody else. And, my house is on fire and nobody gives a hoot about that my house is on fire. And so the reason why they're saying Black Lives Matter is not in reference, it's not in context of whether the others matter or not. The point of the matter is that these people are on fire. It's almost like, if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, okay, Moses came up with, when he finally accepted, and he was trying to seriously take care of the situation, and he all often killed somebody. In his moment, I thought about this a lot. He all often killed. He was sick of it. He was sick of the people being chanced upon or whatever. And he saw them doing somebody wrong, and he all often killed the guy and then skipped out. And then later on, about 40 years later, then he comes back for the second win of it. The whole thing that's happened is that when these things happen, you want to go to a room and just scream. You just want to scream, and it's like, and so you want to stop watching. You want to stop watching. You want to stop hearing. You don't want to see another one of the situations where it's that. But it comes down to the same thing. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Christian and to behave certain ways. You just can't do it. And it would be one thing if I were talking about the behavior of a moment in the context of the United States of America. We're talking about 400 plus years. I think there's a good conclusion. We can conclude rightly that folk don't plan to change, which is why everybody's in the streets, why everybody's upset, and why nobody's backing down, because we've given you time to become human. We've given you the time to act Christ-like, or even if not Christian, to act like a human being toward other human beings. And so by this time I'm going, oh, they don't plan to change. So I gotta change, because enough is really enough.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, your mic's off. Who's in?
Yay.
There
Now?
you go. Yep.
Sorry, I was just saying it's what you're saying. It's very interesting what you're saying. This whole point that it's reached. it's been interesting watching the turnarounds of people like heading up the NFL and stuff like this, which apologizing for not actually responding to Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. You know, like they realized all of the criticism, like, why are you protesting? You don't need to protest like this. You shouldn't protest. You're not trying to tell people how they're supposed to respond to, obviously, what, you know, this whole injustice that people have been living through, and being told then how you're supposed to respond to it. It just doesn't make sense. And then finally they're seeing it. It's a very interesting thing. I was thinking the other day, if there is a glimmer of something positive on Trump, he has pushed the bar so out of the range that I think it's partly due to his absolute, I don't know how to describe his reaction,
Ineptitude.
that it's actually been able to bring out a lot of, you know, I mean, there's such a middle class groundswell supporting this now that wasn't there before. I think that's that little bit of positivity to see there. I mean, okay, it's it's not enough of a consolation, and it shouldn't be needed. But I think that's this political movement. It has to be a political movement because it has to come through change that's happening institutionally.
The protesters are 98% white these days. That is brand new.
Yes.
Yeah, that is right. And actually, I think it's something that we're seeing. You know, in the years before, if you're old enough to remember, you know, the young people have been protesting forever. They always did. It was like, you know, the 60s were full of lots of young people that were marching and so on and so forth. In this time frame, the issues have become so heated and so close to home to young people that when you got 1 million teenagers marching because of gun control, the need for gun control, my feeling was that, okay, yeah, you know, now something will happen. And then, you know, they got the high school students that are marching. And then after that, there'll be the college students that are marching. Then their parents will go after them and march. Nada. High school kids marched. They were in DC and so on and so forth. Blocked the streets, the whole thing. And I'm waiting for the shoe to drop with the college students. And then I realized that they were so caught up in the gadgets and the looks and all the other stuff that they couldn't be bothered with, and college was more important. And then the parents were happy that, you know, no more of their kids got shot down anymore, and so it wasn't enough for that to happen. Okay, the difference in this situation is almost like first off. I was having this conversation before, and I said everybody was put on a level playing field, in the sense that that was COVID-19 hit the world. Okay, so the world wasn't working, people weren't doing that, and they were still right there. They're at the television and so on and so forth. And then we get the eye of God, which is that we get the eye of God that turns the light on. It's like you could deny it. You could forever. You could do that. You know, we got pictures of people being attacked by dogs and all that forever and a day. And then you're looking at this guy, a policeman, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He has got his knee on this guy's throat. I cried.
Yeah.
I cried. I wrote a song. I wrote some verses because I knew that I had to process it. I had to process it in some way. Something had to happen as a result of that. And I believe that this is what happened was there was a need to say enough is enough. Okay, you can no longer sit in silence and say it's not happening because you've seen it, and they sat there. And I thought, you know, you're thinking that well, yeah, you know, it could happen. They could have all went, given, somebody asked me, there could have been a whole mob that, I said, yeah, and they have a bloodbath, a massacre. Because that same guy and his cronies would have shot everybody that was on that street, and they would scream and yell and so on and so forth. And I said the very fact that he was cool and calm about it, his hands in his pocket and his glasses on his head, like it was just, you know, it's like, oh, this was just normal fare. And the whole world saw it. The entire world saw it. It's like we, you know, we wanted to just turn away, but we couldn't turn away because we couldn't go to work. Okay, there was no work to be had, and you were at home. You were on lockdown. It's like, okay, it's like how can I say it? A God moment where it's like, okay, look at what's happening. Okay, you can no longer deny that this.
Yeah,
This
you will see it.
You absolutely. And so therefore, and with the young people, a lot of them, for them, it was a shock, because a lot of them had never seen that. They had never really kind of experienced that. So all of a sudden, it's like a lot of us we used to see, it's like, yeah, you saw it, but you know, see it and don't see it, you know, kind of thing. That was the way we were processing. But they were like, oh heck no. Oh heck no. Okay. So then it was like, if that, and this is where all of this came full circle and said, you know, that could be me. It was like it was a humanity moment that said that could have been me. Okay, and so then it was a whole new conversation. It was a whole new narrative. It was like, you know, you're just thinking, and then you know, it's like the Orson Welles thing. It's like, hell no. It's like, we're mad as hell. We're not taking it anymore, and
Yeah.
that's what happened. And so, and even at that, the 45th that really came in with a platform that he realized the only way to win was to divide and conquer.
Hmm.
Okay, Obama won because he was able to bring people together in coalition. Okay, this guy was saying, I only said I have snowball chance in hell of getting this, you know, so I got to divide. I get, you know, real con all those people that think, yeah, you know, somebody's finally going to stand up for us. And, you know, we started seeing the people up in the White House and all of that stuff. And so we've been left out, and so he's going to be good for us. And what happens? Nothing. They're in worse shape now than they were. And I think the whole thing just kind of exploded. And so here we are. We're forced to have the conversation. Yeah. It's the same. Mm. Absolutely.
And you want to go, are you really that insane? It's June, and we know nothing more about corona. We are no different
Absolutely.
shape than we were in March. We have no vaccine. We're not testing for antibodies. We are nowhere near the level of testing we
Anyway.
ought to be
Mm.
in this country. And we're going to open up what? To do what? And the red states, or those states who never closed in the first place or closed late, they're open. And guess what? Surprise! The corona instances are through the roof. And I'm going, is somebody stupid? I mean, really, are we just that stupid? Jesus calls us
Well,
sheep for a reason, because sheep are stupid, y'all. They are stupid. And
I
so are
just want
human
to take you back
beings.
to something before it goes away from the subject. Not only have
yeah.
people are now seeing what the police are capable of and they cannot ignore it, there's something even scarier than what's going on with the police brutality. And I take it back to the gentleman that I was telling you about earlier. For him to have seen the 8 minutes and 46 seconds, how he was able to find equality for that, he went back to like 2014, 2015, where one isolated bizarre thing happened where this nice looking white couple, young folk, had been raped and maimed and murdered by 4 black men. And he said,
Yeah. Right. Right. Hmm. So they couldn't see it. Amazing. Absolutely. Okay. We have 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes. I want to ask if we can continue the conversation maybe a week from today. Is that a problem for anyone? Because I think it's a fair enough consideration. Do you think? Okay, so yeah, a week from today. Okay. 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 So we'll tentatively kind of put it on hold. I kind of hate leaving it like that, but I have another encounter at 9. This is like a busy day. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I do. Because otherwise we end up burying it somewhere in our psyche. And then then the rage hits one day. You just, it's kind of like that. Okay. Thank you to everyone who participated. We have Barbara from Frankfurt. We have Lucianne from Frankfurt. We have Christine from Geneva. We have Marilyn from Geneva.
France.
Brenda from Charlottesville. And I'm from Florence.
And you missed out on France.
We just want to put. Excuse me, France.
Merci.
France. Okay. So anyway, we would like to continue the conversation next week. Okay, I think now that it'll be easier to get on the address and so on and so forth. Okay, my apologies because this is really quite an experience for me. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all. Good evening.
Cheers.
Ciao.
And so those of you that are in the bar, I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Buonasera, grazie a tutti.
Grazie a tutti.
Buonasera.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.
Christine, you staying on? You going away and coming back?
I'm gonna hang up for a minute and come back.
Okay. See you next.
Yep, ditto.
See you.
Okay, bro.
Okay, see you,
Bye.
see you soon.